Let me throw some questions out to the audience. I think there's some good discussion going on here. If anyone has any questions they'd like us to tackle, please let's go ahead.
My question, which may also be a comment, is what plans do the counties have to utilize the capacities in the universities? The reason why I say this, Mr. Chairman, is that I know in the national government, at least the earlier times, they ignored the universities quite a lot, and therefore they delay the development of this country. My comment and my suggestion is that the counties should look at ways of partnering with the universities. Because, for instance, today, Mr. Chairman, the universities are teaching using case studies that are local. In entrepreneurship, we teach case studies that are local, very relevant to the situation. So, my question is, what plans do the counties have to partner with the universities so that they can utilize the facilities there, the human resource there, and so on? For instance, we are a center of excellence in ICT and also in multimedia. Good. We can be of great help to this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question.
The question I have to the panel, in creating this ecosystem, where in this conversation do we have the dominance factor being discussed? Because I really believe it's about changing the culture. As Kenya was celebrated globally around the world, Julian Kula, you won the global finals of IBM Smart Camp in New York this year. We are dominant.
What are you doing at a personal level to encourage other younger entrepreneurs to catch the flame?
We'll start from you, Mike. I think there was a question that addressed you, and then everyone will give their answer in their parting shot. We can only take a minute each, please.
Okay, I'll answer one question that was posed to me directly and yourself, and also have a discussion on what Mbugo raised in terms of different levels of entrepreneurship. Look, we agree that there are different levels. I think we sort of, every time we talk about innovation, we talk about startups, right? I think that's not the right way to look at it. The real wealth in this country is not sitting at the startup level. That's what we don't seem to understand. The real wealth in this country is sitting at the enterprise level, at big projects that the government is doing, but we're all constantly talking about startups. We agree that the startups are going to one day have the Facebook or the kind of business you've built in the last 2 years. But the real wealth, billions of shillings that is being spent, is not being spent at the startup level. That's what we need to sort of establish. It's being spent on the massive projects in government digitization, right? But somehow I feel we are being hoodwinked to think that the area where there's opportunities at the startup level, it's not. So we need to raise up and realize that the opportunities are in digitization of lands, in real infrastructure projects. That is where the money is at the moment, right? We'll get to a point where naturally there'll be opportunities for startups, and those are going to be 1 in 100, right? So we need to run away from this myth that we all have to focus on the startups and have that great idea that will become $1 billion business. It can be. We need to look at currently where the opportunities are.
Right.
Second, on a personal level, what we do, I think our business is in 3 case studies in universities in Strathmore, in Lagos, and in Spain. And a lot of questions. Recently, somebody wrote me a tweet saying, I'm sitting in a class in Nigeria, and Nigerians are really arguing if this case study, they're really almost at a crossroad about our case study. And it created the right debate about Kenyan businesses. I met somebody here in this forum who told me the reason is a startup, not a startup, but an SME insurance company that told me they develop insurance software. They went to Zambia, and the reason why they got the project and they presented is because somebody said, "Are you from Kenya?" Yes. Do you know 7 Seas Technologies? Yes. They did a project for one of our big corporations here, and for that reason, that's why he got the project. He came to see me to just thank me. He probably said I should give you some commission. I said, you don't have to give me commission. All you have to do is just make sure you carry your flag high, just don't mess it up. The third thing is, I'll get invited a lot to owner-run programs, and this Strathmore is here, and they invite us to talk to people who are running businesses. And sharing our experiences is maybe the best thing you could possibly have. Because even me, I would like to sit with other entrepreneurs who tell me, because at any one moment you don't have the knowledge. You're going to learn from others, right?
Yes.
And lastly, in terms of outsourcing, I can tell you confidently that 10%, 15% of our business today is outsourced to local people. Recently, we got a big project in Burundi, which we are building, and the company that we outsourced to do the project, because we're not into physical, electrical, and that kind of business, is a Kenyan company. So they've grown. As we grow, we also pull Kenyan companies along with us.
Well done.
And I can attest to the fact that I've got very many subcontractors who work in my business that are startup companies, and now as we grow, they also grow accordingly.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you very much. My parting shot essentially is in 2 or maybe 3 points. First, by way of answering my colleague, every county that every governor that I've managed to talk to and every county statement that I've heard, they all want a public university in their county. And I think there is a commitment by the national government that in the fullness of time, there will be a university in every county. But then that is not where it should stop. What we now need is the counties to put on board the policy of R&D. The national government is thinking of 2% of the GDP being spent on R&D. I think counties would do well just to start budgeting 1% of their R&D, 1% of their budgets on R&D. And part of the component in their R&D is applied R&D. Secondly, to participate in the large projects, real wealth is in those projects. And that's why one of my next parting shots is that policy, and I think the current Jubilee government has already talked about it. I think it's in their manifesto, the affirmative policy on MSMEs, so that they can have a positive way of creating wealth. Final point, Chairman, is that triangle. We really need to see more examples, success stories of creating enterprises through the partnership of government, industry. You talked about alumni and academia. And part of the Silicon Valley success story is the involvement of the University of California in all that is going on there. And of course, if you look at the industries that have been created around MIT, you'll be amazed. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Somebody please talk about the competition story for the sake of my life.
Gosh, I'll try. I'm not sure if I can. I want to just say again, just in case you didn't hear me before, I want to, if you leave this panel with nothing else, the responsibility for investing in our young people is in this room. If you represent any of the organizations on this board and you haven't found a young person in your county to invest in, not charity, to invest in, then we haven't done our job. So we can't keep blaming government and the insufficiency of the ecosystem. It really is a responsibility of people who are in this room who can identify talent and take a risk on talent. So that responsibility is there. Having said that, there are accelerators and incubators that are out there for small businesses. There's iHub, there's Growth Hub. The challenge is that those things are based in Nairobi and some of the big centers. They are not going to focus on the counties. So the responsibility is from all of you who represent the counties. And there's where the competition comes in, I think. That each of us takes, I'm not Kenyan, by the way, but each of us takes responsibility for our county and invests in our county so our county our individual counties can progress. On the second point about how to factor in dominance, I'm a Nigerian, so I take a little bit of exception to this Kenyan dominance issue, but I take your point, it is there. The question is really how we highlight it. I know that the African Development Bank is doing a report. It's soon to come out called the Savannah Valley, it's Silicon Savannah, which I think will be interesting. But I think that's something we should just talk about more. How can we start to talk about what is happening in Kenya and profile that at an international level? There are opportunities to do that. The case studies are good examples, but there are other opportunities to do that. Which leads me to my last point, which is around what really needs to happen here. At the end of the day, in order for there to be a new Facebook or sort of the next big thing in Africa, we need to grow the consumer base in Africa. In order to do that, we need to create jobs at the core of it. If we're talking about, we shouldn't be modeling ourselves after economies that don't have the type of challenges that we see in Africa. So that's the first thing. Where we can create dominance as a continent is if we start to match our aspirations in the technology growth in this sector with our aspirations on job creation. That's where I think we're going to be able to craft a real dominant position internationally.
Thank you very much. Well said.
I'll be very brief, and of course I will not address the question that has still not been addressed.
Just bring the mic closer so that we can hear. There you go.
Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be very brief, and mine is to just talk about significance. We all know that the economic society evolves because of enterprise development. The more we consciously, aggressively, and deliberately encourage enterprise development activity, the further we're able to take this country forward. It starts with every one of us. Just to hint on the question that she asked about competitiveness, I don't think as a panel we are trying to play down or suppress competitiveness. All I think we're trying to say is think of new innovative business value ideas that drive us to the next level, because if we continue doing the same things differently, the same things consistently, we cannot expect different results.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Parting shot from you.
Yeah, I think we need to talk about innovation and perhaps encourage people, particularly those people who are still in schools and universities. I think we need to create a mindset that it is a way into the future so that people start focusing about getting employed. Nothing wrong with that, but I think we need to also start encouraging them from a younger age to aim at developing their own and nurturing their own ideas, because that's how we're going to grow these big enterprises. And again, once the enterprises are done, are there, how can we keep them going? How can we start exporting them into the other region as opposed to them reaching a certain stage and almost like stagnating?